Alright, what's good, guys? For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Joshua, and on this channel we talk about all things personal growth and self-improvement. Now, before we begin the video, there's one thing that I wanted to quickly address. I wanted to address what this is, because loads of people think that it's a backpack. It is not a backpack. It is actually a posture corrector. Let's have a look. Now, the reason I wear it is because I sit at desks a lot. And when I tend to sit at desks, I tend to hunch my shoulders over, so it stops me from doing that and strengthens the muscles within the back. So I'm in no way, shape, or form endorsed by the product. I just think the product is really good. So if you do sit at desks, I highly suggest that you invest in this bad boy because it will change your life. Okay? So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So what I wanted to talk about today was the 4 laws of boundaries. Because I feel like boundaries is a topic that everybody really needs, but they don't know that they need it until something crazy or cataclysmic happens. So the 4 things I'm going to share with you will massively improve the quality of the relationships that you have as well. And if you do see yourself in any of these, don't judge yourself too harshly. It just means that there's room to grow. So let's begin. So I'll give us a definition first of all, or the definition that I've got for what a boundary is, and then we can all work together. Cool. So the definition that I've got for a boundary is a boundary is something that highlights where you end and where somebody else begins. So clearly identifies to you where you end and where somebody else begins. Wow, the sun's shining on my hands. So, like I said, shows where you end and where you begin. So it highlights to you what's important, what's you, what you are responsible for, what belongs to you, what is you, and it clearly identifies what is not you. So what you are not responsible for, things that have nothing to do with you, none of your business. So a good example of a boundary is a fence, right? So when you have a fence, it normally surrounds a house. So when that fence surrounds your house, it surrounds everything that belongs to you. So you've got your own house, you've got your garden, you've got your belongings. That's yours. You're responsible for that. And the fence also clearly differentiates to everybody else outside of it what is not you. So you've got your next to the fence, you probably got somebody else's house there, and you've got their house, their belongings, their garden. And when you're taking care of your house, you take care of the things that belong to you. You mow your own lawn. You don't mow somebody else's lawn because it's not your responsibility. That's on them. They take care of that. So that's what a boundary is. It clearly identifies where you end, what you're responsible for, or what somebody else is responsible for also. So conflicts often arise when somebody starts either tampering with what belongs to you, or you end up getting burdened with the responsibility of something that somebody else should be taking care of. Okay, so these 4 things, these 4 laws to live by will protect you and also will improve the quality of your relationships. So let's begin. The first law I've got for the law of boundaries is the law of sowing and reaping. Now, the law of sowing and reaping suggests that you allow people to reap the consequences of their actions. So this really applies, especially if somebody is continuously showing you irresponsible behavior in one field. So, for example, you could have somebody who's really bad with their money. They're always just spending their money carelessly, always getting themselves into debt. And then it turns out to be you who's always giving them the money to bail them out. All the time, it's you bailing them out. Now, the problem with you bailing them out all the time is because you're interrupting the process of them reaping the consequences of what they sow. And because you interrupt the process, they never change. So I'll give you an example. So like I remember when I was in school, I was a very smart kid. Not to get myself up, I was a very smart kid. The problem with me was that I was lazy and I had an attitude. So I remember there was a time where my mom used to always nag me. She'd be like, Josh, you need to study, you need to do the work. She was on my back, forcing me to sit down and do the work. And I'd have an attitude and I'd resist. I'd be slamming doors and yelling. And there came a point my mom was like, you know what? Bun him. You know what? I'm not taking the exams. Nothing to do with me. Do what you want. Yeah. So it's always a bad thing when a woman says do what you want. But I did what I wanted, right? So I played on my PlayStation, Crash Bandicoot, did that, didn't do the work. And then what happened was the exams came, which were going to decide what classes we were all going to be in the next year. And I failed. And I was in the bottom class the next year. I was in the bottom class. And it was so painful because in that bottom class, I was sat next to somebody who would continuously be passing wind. And I kid you not, continuously, every day, they'd be passing wind. They'd always be passing wind every it's so bad. Every single day. And that person had hot breath too. And you know what? The crazy thing about people with hot breath is they like to talk a lot. So this person would always be, Josh, always talking with the hot breath. And then there was also another guy in my class. And we'll call this guy, we'll call him Kevin. Kevin. So Kevin sat on the other side of the classroom, and every single day, I kid you not, every day, Kevin would forget his textbooks. So he'd forget the textbooks which had all the material we were learning every day. So what the teacher would do is would take my textbook away, because I was closest to the desk, and she would give my textbook to Kevin. So I'd have to share my book with this person, and this person would just fart and breathe heavy for the full year, a year of suffering. I suffered for a year, right? But I tell you what, after that experience, I worked hard. I was never lazy again, never lazy again, and I became a straight A student very quickly, right? And that's because I experienced the pain of that. My mom allowed me to reap the consequences of my actions, which was idleness and laziness. She left me to reap the consequences. So that's what the law is. The law of sowing and reaping. You must allow people to reap the consequences of their actions. So if they're continuously irresponsible, the most loving thing you can do for them is allow their irresponsibility to run its course so that they can experience the pain of it, because that's what's going to make them change. Pain makes people change. Otherwise, they'll continue to remain the same. So that's the first law, the law of sowing and reaping. The second law is the law of respect. Now, what the law of respect suggests is that you respect the boundaries of other people. So that means you respect the no's of other people. Now, many of us struggle with this. So oftentimes you think that, someone, you got boundary problems means that you struggle to say no, but it's also the inability to take the no of others. So a good classic example of this is this. Like, for example, you could have a friend who lives kind of in the same direction to you when you're going home, and you ask them for a lift and they're like, nah, sorry, I can't give you a lift today. And then you get mad. You're like, why aren't you giving me a lift? It's not a big problem. It's only along the way. If it was me, I'd give you a lift. It doesn't really matter because, we're all going in the same direction. The problem with this is that you're not respecting the no of the other person. You don't really know the whole ins and out on why they're saying no. They have a right to say no. But because you're nagging them and you're not taking their no and accepting it, one of two things is going to happen. Either this person's going to, either kick back at you, or two, more than likely they'll comply. Most people will comply in that situation. So they'll give you the lift anyway, but they'll give it to you resentfully. And the problem with them giving it to you resentfully is because they're giving not from what the purpose in their own heart. They're giving more than they want to give to you. And what will happen is that the love that was once there in the relationship will slowly begin to get sour because you don't respect their no. You must respect people's no. So many relationships fall apart of this, not because the people involved are bad people, just because you don't respect the boundaries of other people. So when someone says no, you take the no. Take it, because once you accept and respect the no's of others, people will respect your no also. So the relationship will flourish in a beautiful way when you learn to do that. So that's the second law, the law of respect. The third law is the law of giving. And now, when I'm talking about the law of giving, what I'm talking about is this. Is like when you give and you're really, really giving out of what you've purposed in your own heart, and giving what you want to give, you feel good. There's a nice feeling. You're like, I've done a good thing today. It's nice to give. But sometimes people end up feeling resentful, or you get depressed when you're giving, or you hear people say things like, you know what, I'm giving too much. And that can be a true statement. You won't ever feel resentful or burnt out or feel like you're giving too much when you're giving more than you purposed in your own heart. You're giving more than you initially wanted to give. So whenever you feel like you're giving more than you want to give, you need to stop yourself right there. Because what will happen is when you give to people, and I'm not to be like a pessimistic or like, I hate the world, but people will take more from you than you're willing to give. If you give people an inch, they'll run it a mile. There's a saying, and there's some truth in that. What you must do is when you give to people, more often than not, they may ask you to take some more. And what's important is that if you are unwilling to give, or if you are unsure on whether or not you want to give, you say no. You just say no. Or if you struggle to say no, at least the bare minimum you say, let me think about it, let me get back to you. Just those two statements will protect you from giving more than you want to give, because once you fall into that pattern, you begin to get resentful. And so that's the law of giving. So don't give more than you've purposed in your own heart. Otherwise you become resentful. The next law is the law of motivation. So you can attach this to the law of giving. Now, the law of motivation addresses the reasons why you give, why you do certain things, why you contribute to relationships. And it's important that you review this, because many people, like I say, they give or they contribute to relationships for many different reasons, and sometimes they feel burnt out or they're depressed because of this, because they give for different reasons, not for the reason of love, not because they want to give or want to contribute, but from fear. So these are some of the most common reasons why people give in the relationships. So sometimes they give because they fear the anger of other people. So they've still got that internal parent or an internal voice in their mind that may make them, I don't like saying make, but may make them feel like afraid of the anger of other people. So because you fear making somebody angry, you give something, or you give your time, or you give your resources, you share because you fear that the anger, you don't want them to be angry with you. But the thing about anger is this: you got to remember, Anger is outside of you. It's nothing to do with you. The emotions of others are for them to deal with. It's not your problem. There should be nothing to fear in the emotion of anger. People give because they're afraid of the anger of other people. Some people give because they're afraid of love, or they're afraid that if they don't give, they won't be loved. And this is a very, very common fear, because a lot of us have been brought up in a way where the love provided from our caregivers wasn't necessarily unconditional. Because sometimes, especially if you're a parent, you gotta really be careful of this, is that when your kid isn't behaving in the way that you want them to behave, or they're being quote unquote naughty, what I tend to do is that you can sometimes get hurt by it, and you can kind of withdraw. You can withdraw your love, you withdraw your presence, or you start giving them the silent treatment because you're hurt by it. What's important is that you do not withdraw or disengage from the child. It's important that you remain there, because what that actually trains your child is this: it trains them to believe that I am only ever lovable when I'm doing what mommy wants me to do, right? It creates the behavior of compliance, right? They never really reveal who they truly want to be, because they feel that if they do, they will not be loved. So this is one thing that's really, really common. People fear not being loved, and they give it. So if you have that problem, it's important that we address that and become aware of that. Another reason that people give is also the motivation of giving is guilt. So sometimes people don't resolve their own feelings of guilt, or their own traumas in a way. And because they've not resolved their own feelings of guilt, what they do is they overly identify with the problems and issues of other people. So for example, somebody could be going through a hard time, and even though you can show support, what you do is you overly give, or you overly get involved with their problems. You start taking on their problems as if they were your own, right? You overly identify with their problems because you've not resolved your own guilt. You gotta remember that when people have problems and stuff, it's important that it's good to help, it's good to support, but you gotta remember that it's on them. It's their responsibility to deal with the problems. You can support, but it's on them to work it out. It's on them to get through. It's on them to ask for the help. You help where needed, but you don't overly engage. You don't try to fix the problem for them, because it's not your problem to solve. So those are some of the laws. So once again, I'll go over it. So you got the law of sowing and reaping, the law of respect, the law of motivation we've just covered, and the law of giving. Those 4 laws will help you massively. The more laws, but I feel like that's a good foundation for boundaries. So that is the video of the day, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Y'all take care, and we'll speak again soon. Bye bye.